The MC is Elio. Okay, first off, this is my first ever theory video, so I want to preface by saying I know it's not perfect and it was never meant to be. I just wanted to bring this fun but kind of plausible theory to the forefront to get more people talking about it. But without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, Elio. We all know Elio, right? That super mysterious guy that was only mentioned by 2 characters in the entire beta, and it was only in the opening scene, and yet he's potentially one of the most important characters in the overall story? Yeah, him. Let's talk about him, and what little we know. Elio is supposedly able to predict the future so accurately that he can predict it down to the actual second, as mentioned by Silverwolf when she speaks to Kafka in the start of the space station arc. I will say right off the bat that it seems a little odd to me that Kafka asks Silverwolf if the explosion that had just occurred slightly before the conversation started was in Elio's script, directly after stating that Elio's script is always exact. Now, this could have just been a little bit of a dialogue to allow the player to know that his script is actually true to the timeline, but if we look at it as a normal piece of dialogue between these characters, then it's odd that Kafka questions the script, unless... what if she was surprised that the script is accurate because these are events that he predicted before his death, and yet Elio still got the events down to the second? Okay, let me explain some more. When Kafka and Silverwolf obtain the Stellaron and start to create the MC, Silverwolf mentions that Elio had specifically chosen Kafka to be the one to choose the receptacle that they'll use for the Stellaron, as it will bring upon lots of changes. And while for now, it doesn't appear that the actual choice of which gender the MC is actually makes any changes besides the pronouns that the other characters use, this is an important detail because Elio entrusted Kafka with a major task over Silverwolf. This indicates that Elio and Kafka may have a closer relationship or trust level than the other Stellaron hunters. Once Kafka makes the decision and Silverwolf creates the receptacle with the data that Kafka sent over, Kafka then goes to insert the big ol' powerful ball of light, the Stellaron. She asks, how much does he or she remember? And Silverwolf answers with, they'll remember you. Okay, now tell me an instance in which you ever talked about someone like that if you didn't already know that person, and at least know them well. Both Silverwolf and Kafka knew who we were or what we were before we were put into the receptacle, and we should know them. What a good oh, look, we do remember Kafka. One last thing I would like to point out here to establish that the MC and the Stellaron hunters do in fact know each other is why in the world would the Stellaron hunters have a mission to give a complete random person the entire Stellaron if it was not someone they trusted to go completely along with their agenda? We can at least make the argument that if not Elio himself, then we are at least associated with the Stellaron hunters at a high degree. But that's a side note for now. Let's continue. Kafka tells us after we wake that we're in a daze right now, and while we have no clue who we are or why we think we recognize her, she will be leaving the space station and will be left alone here. However, we should not worry, because while we may experience many hardships and perils, we will meet companions who will treat us like family and embark on surreal adventures with them. This is your future that Elio has foreseen. Do you like it? Okay, now I know that last line actually mentions Elio as a third party here, and that he is separate from the MC, but I have options as to why that does not matter and still works, so bear with me. But we'll get into that a little later. Everything Kafka says that will happen to us, happens. Almost as if she knew what our future was and was reading off a script. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, cool. But if we are Elio, then wouldn't we be able to see into the future too? And to that, I say, don't rush me. We're getting there. Fast forward a little bit, and we meet the Astral Express crew, who takes us in as one of their own. And then we go on a small adventure in the station until we have to fight this mega huge, cool-ass looking mecha robot alien machine called the goddamn Doomsday Beast. Towards the end of the fight, it shoots a final flash, except without a 4-minute charge-up time, at March 7th that the MC quickly swoops in to block with their body? Okay, cool. So now we're at the center of the universe, and we meet Nanook, the Aeon of Destruction. During this encounter, we see flashes of events that happen way later in the beta. In fact, for us, it's around 6+ hours, but in-game, it's around 3 days or so. In fact, this is not the only time we use this power to see different time periods. At the end of the beta, when Cocolia turns us into a horizontal shish kebab, we enter the center of the universe yet again and see apparitions of the past with Cocolia's previous encounters with some of the cast and Silverman guards. And while, yes, this is not the future, it could still be in line with Elio's powers if we include the theory that Elio is an emanator of Terminus. And in case you don't know what an emanator is, there's a loading screen tip that gives us a little bit more information, stating that path striders with power directly granted by the Aeons are incomparably more powerful than mere mortals. They are typically enforcers of Aeon's wills. So, if he's an emanator of Terminus, then he fits the description of Terminus, which is the Aeon that moves backward in time and presides over the path of finality. The apparition travels across the universe while murmuring a prophecy that is destined to be fulfilled. Kinda sounds like Elio's scripts. This could also help explain why we are apparently prone to meeting other Aeons so quickly, because we're already a major servant of one and could be more on their skill level than others. Side note, I do not mean that statement as if normal people can't see Aeons. In fact, Herta has met multiple Aeons already, which is noted in her diaries. But anyway, back to the main point. Answer a few questions you may have, including, why would we not remember we're Elio? Why did Kafka and Silverwolf not tell us who we are? Why do we need the Stellaron in us? Why does Elio need to be dead for this theory to work? And finally, what is Elio's end goal? And to answer those questions, let's take a quick detour to a side mission that can help explain our situation. In this side mission, we were tasked with finding some missing videotapes that hold great secrets, so much so that the tapes themselves have failsafe measures in them, where the best case scenario is we could feel a little dizzy, and worst case is some hallucinations and memory or consciousness disorders. Geez, some mighty secrets you got there, old lady. The first tape does not do much besides tell us of a view of a space station, but when we find and view the second tape, we discover the names Sheila Nova and Gunn. After the tape ends, we start to get a splitting headache. After the third and final tape, we learn that Sheila Nova was killed in an accident, and then the MC passes out and wakes up in the medical bay. As we wake up, we see a doctor speaking to another woman about her memory loss, but the doctor reassures her and says that she gave her a full body scan using the capsule treatment module, and that there's nothing wrong with her physical functions. On the contrary, they're actually too perfect. The doctor asks the woman's name, and she responds, Sheila Nova. But didn't you just say she died? Yes, I did say she was dead. So how is she alive right now? Fast forward in the mission and we find Gunn. More importantly, we find his office with a paper that is titled Sheila's Character Script, which has a word-for-word transcript of what she said to the doctor. Quite odd, right? We learn that Gunn is Sheila's husband, and due to him not being able to cope with the loss of his wife, he created an android reincarnation of her, but did not tell her all of her memories or that she was an android due to limited computing power. Well, we decide to tell her anyway, and her chips fry out and she shuts down. Now, I know that was a bit of a tangent, but I promise Sheila is a prime example of how we could be Elio. Okay, so we don't know Elio's render distance with his future sightseeing abilities, but let's say for a second that he could see his own death and all the events that occur thereafter. So, since he has not reached his goal yet, he wrote a script for an android version of himself to follow, and gave that script along with some basic data like language, basic knowledge, and fighting capabilities to Kafka to insert into the receptacle along with the Stellaron to act as a powerful enough power source to not fry when dealing with self-reflecting situations like what happened with Sheila. Okay, so back to those questions that I mentioned before. Let me go ahead and answer those. Why would we not remember we are Elio? Well, I believe the answer to this is that they wanted to make sure that this new form would not deviate from the script and would follow it as close as possible. Why did Kafka and Silverwolf not tell us who we are? Well, they can't give us information on our past to make sure that we follow the script as given. In fact, they instead did the opposite and told us of our future and what we will encounter, which we did end up doing. Why do we need the Stellaron in us? Same as how Gunn did with Sheila, Elio could have taken the precaution to not allow himself to think about the past to potentially use all of the Stellaron's power. Why does Elio need to be dead for this theory to work? Well, he doesn't, really. Let's actually take that statement from the beginning where Kafka says, "This is the future that Elio has envisioned for you. Do you like it?" It could potentially be that we're not necessarily the reincarnation of Elio, but actually a secondary version of himself that he created to speed up his end goal, by following a script of steps that get him closer to that goal at every turn. So what is Elio's end goal? Well, we have no idea. Like, actually, I have no clue as to what Elio's endgame could be. However, I will say I do believe that there is a potential that Elio does not necessarily predict the future, but actually creates the future himself. That's a whole nother theory that I won't talk about until we get more information in the game. Alright, so that's everything I brought to the show and tell. I hope I was able to convince or spark some interest in a few of you. I'd love to see some conversations in the comments either helping prove this theory or disproving it entirely, because why not? I'd also like to give a huge thank you to these two amazing individuals that helped me gather my thoughts and evidence for this theory. I literally could not have made this video without them, and I have their socials in the descriptions and recommend checking them out. Until next time, Trailblazers. In this side mission, we were tasked with finding some missing videotapes that hold great secrets. Secrets? Oh my god. We love great secrets. Shut up.